Welcome to this webinar series on V3 Discovery. As a reminder, the core of Discovery is really translating what the student currently does into variables that will help support competitive integrated employment. And we've organized those variables into the 4 C's. So no matter what step you're on, no matter what kind of information you're gathering, we're really trying to frame those into what does this tell us about the individual's interests and preferences that we've titled choices. What information have we gathered about the student's skills or abilities that could be contributions to a potential employer? What might be the conditions for employment? So really reframing barriers or reframing those challenges into conditions for employment. And who does the student know? Who do they hang out with? Who does the family hang out with that could be potential social capital to be able to use to make those connections to employment? So you've made it to step 5, employment development. Finally, step 5, you're on to the last step. This is where you're going to take all the information of those employers that were brainstormed in the Brain Blizzard, and now we're going to create a list of ones we're going to contact. And there's an actual tool or form on the website that goes along with the process that you can use, and this is where you're going to start making a match between the student's interest, preference, and skills and conditions for employment and the employer needs. What do employer needs? So we're not going and knocking on doors and saying, do you have a job available? This is what we're going to call, well, we don't call it, it is called customized employment, that we're going to negotiate a position with employers based on the match between the student's choices, contributions, and conditions and the potential needs that the employer has. So here are 3 relevant questions. When you meet with employers, you might just ask to take a tour of their employment agency, just to get behind the scenes and see what kinds of things the staff are expected to do in that particular environment, and just get a needs analysis. And then these are 3 questions that are really helpful to start making that, carving out that position, if you will, or customizing that position for the employer and the employee, potential employee. So one question might be, do you have any unmet workplace needs or tasks that need to get done but often aren't? That's where oftentimes the jobs that don't get done, they need to get done, but they're not getting done, are the ones that are monotonous. The staff don't want to do them. They're boring. All of those kinds of tasks that often are the type of tasks that individuals with more complex barriers to employment really gravitate to. So individuals with autism often like monotonous routine type tasks. And so that's where we can start to carve out a position where a student could do or just perform these unmet workplace needs. The second one, do you have any individual tasks or aspects of larger tasks performed by highly paid employees that could be performed by entry-level workers? Again, we were working with one student who was working in a hospital in a dialysis unit, and one of the tasks were to create these units of all of the materials one nurse would need for one patient for dialysis. It avoids the nurse having to go and gather all the stuff. Instead, she can just go grab this one little box and it's got everything she needs in it. Unfortunately, the nurses, to try to create all of those boxes at one time, it gets boring and monotonous, and the nurses are very busy with other tasks and expectations, and so it just often wouldn't get done. And it was being performed by, the highly paid nurses. And so this was one place where we could really say, look, we have an individual who is very good at preparing stock like that, and that would be his whole job. That's what he would do. And so again, you're finding that niche for that potential employee to the need that the employer has. This is about a win-win situation between employers and employees. And then finally, do you have any tasks that would benefit from specific productivity or quality enhancement based on the competency of a job seeker? We have many, many individuals on the autism spectrum that have beyond skills in particular areas, whether that be data entry on the computer or visual motor tasks, etc. And so there's often tasks that the employer will go, oh yeah, because the student is so amazing at that particular skill, that we can really carve out a position just for that kind of a skill. So that's what you're looking for there in asking the employer these 3 relevant questions. Finally, other relevant considerations. Obviously, you've got to look when you're maybe taking a tour of the business. What's the dress code like? Is there commonly used language or slang that the student is going to have a difficult time understanding? What are the work hours? How do they do break time or lunchtime procedures? Initiation. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you might need to consider as you're doing your tour in order to make the best kind of matches between the employee and the employer. And then finally, this is the tool that you would take with you to the employment agency. And what you do is you pick out the top 4 choices or interest or preference of the student, the top 4 contributions, and the top 4 conditions. And then when you do your tour and you do your interview with the employer, you can just say, yeah, this one's available or this is not available. And that really helps you if you're looking at going to 4 or 5 different employment places. It really gives you an idea of which of these places is going to be the most successful for that particular student. So that wraps up the 5 steps of the V3 discovery. Again, finalizing with securing employment for this individual. So this process could be used to prepare for summer employment, to prepare for opportunities in after school or weekend employment. So the student has similar opportunities to non-disabled peers to access paid employment. And certainly on long term, it is a process that can be used to help secure careers for individuals with complex barriers to employment. So I wish you excellent success in utilizing this process for your students, and be sure to contact the START office if you have any questions about the process or access to the materials.